Lucy, you're back. I can't tell you how glad I am to see you. Sergei exclaimed, his voice brimming with anticipation as his partner stepped through the door. No, I'm just here to grab my remaining things. I made it clear, this is over between us, she retorted firmly. But how can that be? I love you. I don't want us to end. I need you, Lucy. These days have been so lonely without you. Sergei pleaded, his desperation evident. Just a week earlier, something had happened that should never occur between partners or even housemates. In an outburst of fury, Sergei had slapped Lucy. The argument broke out when he came home and found what he thought was chaos in the kitchen. Amid all this mess, Lyudmila was cooking soup. Bowls, plates and jars were cluttered with kitchen tables. There were traces of spoiled tomatoes on the 10-liter saucepan on the stove, which were now burning and staining its surface. Various dishes with garlic, hot pepper, and other ingredients were scattered in the kitchen. There stood Lucy, calmly slicing bell peppers, as if nothing was amiss. They had moved in together just 4 months prior. Before that, Sergei had lived alone for years. For her, he had willingly abandoned his cherished solitude and dared to embrace the idea of starting a family again, albeit without considering all the detailed nuances. Both in their 40s when they met, Lucy had a grown daughter already in the workforce. Sergei, on the other hand, had a 10-year-old son from his first marriage, whom he rarely saw since his ex-wife lived in another city. Finding a partner in this vast world who offers the peace of solitude, yet the warmth of companionship, seemed like the ultimate dream. Initially, Lucia thought Seriosa was the perfect fit. When he suggested she move in with him, she gladly relinquished her rented apartment. Lucia endeavored to be the epitome of a good wife. She hoped she had found the man who would bring her happiness, potentially even one with whom she could share her twilight years, though that was still a distant prospect. For the first few months, she was on cloud 9. She delighted her beloved with an array of delectable meals, often prepared despite her exhaustion. She sometimes marveled at the remarkable energy reserves she tapped into. Surely this was love. What else could explain it? However, after a couple of months, Sergei's demeanor began to shift. He returned from work sullen and irritable, often grumbling half the night over trivial matters. For example, a teacup left unwashed or improperly mopped floors. Even an unmade bed could spark his irritation. But really, what did these things matter? The cup, the floor, the bed. They seemed inconsequential when the house was nearly spotless. A fresh-cooked dinner awaited on the table, and a loved one stood by his side. Lucia had her own job too. She'd return home an hour before her husband, and somehow managed to handle all the house chores and prepare dinner. Initially, she brushed off his habitual grumbling, but as time went on, it started to grate on her nerves. She remained silent, choosing not to speak of it. She harbored hopes that this was merely a fleeting storm, that soon enough he would settle down and normalcy would be restored. She continued to wait, though the waiting seemed endless. Traditionally, she had always prepared for the colder months in advance, managing these preparations even in Sergei's absence. Occasionally, he would join forces with their son-in-law to tinker with the car, which often led to him spending entire weekends at his sister's home. He was supposed to visit her again that day, but unexpectedly returned home. When he returned, he was faced with a mess. Lucia couldn't grasp why Sergei was so excessively upset upon seeing the mess. After all, creating preserves was never a tidy affair. "Sergei, I'll tidy up soon," she promised. "How do you plan to straighten up all this mess? I don't even recognize you." "You'll say you'll do it, but it'll just stay like this," he exclaimed angrily. "Have you ever seen me leave a mess after cooking?" "Why the pessimism?" she retorted. "It's because it's sweltering in here. It reeks of scorched tomatoes, and stepping into the kitchen is downright terrifying." "Then stay out of it." Stick to your room, catch some TV, she suggested half-jokingly. But I'm starving. What am I supposed to eat? I'll fix something and bring it up. Just take a deep breath, she implored, her voice a mixture of exhaustion and restraint. What are you going to reheat for me? The same old macaroni and cutlets I've been munching on for days. It's all right. I won't be able to cook everything at once anyway. Remember, it was your request. I was completely exhausted today. I had to go to the store twice and carry these heavy bags. It's so stuffy in here, and suddenly you're going crazy. Oh, so I'm the crazy one now. I finally came home, craving peace and quiet, and all I want is to eat. Does that make me crazy? I never said you were crazy, she exclaimed loudly. Don't you dare yell at me. Sergei was furious. You're the one yelling at me. I'm just trying to soothe you. Can we please put an end to this madness? My patience is wearing thin, and if I get angry, things will start exploding. Well, I'd rather have my brain explode. I'm so fed up with all of this. That's when Lucia truly lost her temper. What exactly are you sick of? Are you tired of coming home to a delightful meal? Fed up with sleeping in a cozy bed with freshly washed sheets? Exhausted by the warm welcome I give you when you return from work? Perhaps you're sick of the fact that I never utter a word against you, even when you're wrong. Or maybe you're just sick of me and my mere presence in your house. Tell me, what is it? Yes, I'm tired of you. I don't need your lunches, laundry, he retorted. You know what? I'm tired of you too. You complain about everything all the time. You're such a pessimist. It's just depressing. You're throwing your stuff around and demanding order. You neglect to wash the dishes, but at the same time you have the audacity to scold me for making a mess while cooking. I asked you to go to the vegetable store with me, but you were more concerned about helping a friend. And let me tell you that your feet stink terribly. You're the one who confused me, she screamed. Sergei, apparently, couldn't stomach any form of critique directed at him. Or perhaps it was the fury in her eyes and the sharp pitch of her voice that momentarily drove him to madness, causing him to strike her. Lucia had not seen that coming. Initially, the instinct to retaliate surged through her, but the realization that brute force wasn't her forte sank in swiftly. She wasn't about to jeopardize her own well-being. It's over between us, she hissed, her voice dripping with venom, before storming out of the kitchen. Her hands, trembling with sheer indignation and wounded pride, began to pack her belongings. Whatever she could fit into 2 suitcases, she did so hurriedly, slipped into a pair of jeans, and then walked out of the apartment without as much as a backward glance. Sergei remained an indifferent spectator to all of this, making no effort to apologize or stop her. That night, Lucia crashed at a friend's place, and by the break of dawn, she wasted no time in securing a new apartment. The costs were steep: rent, realtor commissions, plus the umpteen necessities she had to purchase for her new abode. Returning to Sergei wasn't on the table, not for the first 50 hours anyway. Yet slowly, the melancholy broke through. She brooded over their quarrel, replaying every word exchanged in the heat of the moment. In retrospect, they were both at fault. Despite knowing that such an act was beyond forgiveness, the melancholy wouldn't loosen its grip on her mind and heart. Sergei neither called nor sought her out. The only message he sent came late, on the night she left. What should I do with your culinary imperfections? Do whatever you want with it. I don't give a damn, she snapped back in frustration. Naturally, she regretted the fate of her dishes. After all, she had spent money on it, and another half hour, and it would have been ready. The situation was just disgusting. Lucia struggled to admit, even to herself, that she harbored a hope that Sergei would come to his senses and reach out to her, seeking forgiveness, or at the very least, give her a call. But nothing happened. A week slipped by. She started to embrace the reality of being alone again. she decided it was high time to retrieve the rest of her belongings from Sergei's apartment and return his keys. Sure, she could do it while he was at work, but that felt so insignificant, like she was some thief sneaking into someone else's home. No, she refused to go about it that way. Half an hour before heading over, she shot Sergei a message, giving him a heads up that she'd be there shortly. He greeted her at the door. He looked guilty and distressed, but it failed to soften her. Though deep down, somewhere in the depths of her being, it ached. He had said he loved her and didn't want to part ways, yet his actions didn't align with his words. If that was true, why had he stayed silent for an entire week? Why hadn't he mustered the courage to reach out and speak with her? Lucia gazed at him while grappling with a piercing ache in her heart. She knew she couldn't place her trust in him anymore. A man who strikes once is bound to strike again. Seriosa, why keep fooling both yourself and me? If your love was genuine, surely you'd show it by actions, not just words. I beg for your forgiveness. I can't explain my behavior that day. I truly regret it. Then you'll have to live with that guilt. I'm here to pick up my belongings. Lucia moved past him, pulling out the bags she had readied earlier, and started to gather her remaining possessions. Scattered items awaited her collection, shampoos and balms left in the bathroom, her favorite brand of tea, which Sergei never touched, the pink mug her daughter had gifted her 2 Christmases ago, and the cozy knitted throw her sister had given her for her last birthday. As Ludmilla packed her possessions into bags and carried them to the hallway, ready to transport them to what she was now calling home, Sergei watched helplessly. Overwhelmed with remorse, he chased after her like a sorrowful pup, spewing apologies that no longer held any meaning to her. Silence had reigned for a week, a full 7 days of nothing but quiet to confirm her resolve. Had his love been as profound as he claimed, he would have reached out much earlier. When everything was meticulously packed into the bags, Lucia dialed for a taxi. Sergei positioned himself in front of her door and implored, "Please don't leave. I'm going to be utterly lost without you. And I'll be just as lost without you," she assured him, tenderly nudging him aside so she could open the door. Lucia departed, leaving him standing there, hardly blinking as he tried to comprehend what he had done wrong. Evidently, he never figured it out, for they never crossed paths again, despite their previous exchanges of sweet, loving words. As Ludmilla took the cab ride, she gazed out the window, her heart as heavy and forlorn as the autumn scene unfolding outside. Suddenly, it dawned on her that autumn was her favorite time of year, and in just a couple of weeks, it would be her birthday. "Everything will be just fine," she murmured to herself, managing a smile. "Everything will be fine."